Well, Spider-Man Lotus is finally out, and a lot of people in the comic book sphere have been talking about it. I'll admit, I don't know much about it, but it looks pretty high budget for a fan film. Plus, the director of the current Spider-Man movies and Andrew Garfield apparently also said it looks pretty cool. Let me go ahead and see what people are saying about this movie.
Spider-Man Lotus, racist allegations.
There's also the star of Spider-Man Lotus, Spider-Man, aka Warden Wayne.
To show his messages, he dropped like N-bombs. It wasn't just once, like it was a bunch of times.
This, that Mexican N-word. N-word was mean as hell, always saying N-word.
The director was also making racist comments while making the film.
Gavin heard pedo and racist and he was like, okay, that's fine. Letting a person of color become assistant director, hell no. Its director, Gavin Knopp, has covered up that acting coach and the film's Green Goblin, John Salandria, had been grooming an underage student.
Welcome back, everybody, to the worst superhero movies ever made, a series where I pick on children. Now, if you've never heard of Spider-Man Lotus before, God, I envy you. This movie's been a thorn in my side for the last few years. So many people coming into my Twitch chat and asking, hey, have you heard about Spider-Man Lotus? Are you going to talk about Spider-Man Lotus? And oh my God, the threads upon threads of controversy. All for a movie that was only born out of spite. So yeah, you guys are going to want to buckle in because this one's going to be a doozy. But before we get into the movie itself, we have to cover the background of this project because all the drama is what makes it a truly entertaining tale.
All right, let's do this one last time.
This young man's name is Gavin J. Knopp. Like most young brown-haired white boys, Gavin loves Spider-Man. He goes on to become a member of what I like to call Spider-Man Twitter, a group of young men bound together by two things: their love for Spider-Man and their hatred for Spider-Man. I'm telling you, nobody argues about Spider-Man quite like Spider-Man Twitter. And a lot of folks in this sphere have a particular grievance with the MCU's version of Peter Parker, with Spider-Man Far From Home being a major source of disdain for many of them. So many of these fans called out to the heavens. They prayed for a day when they could finally watch a Spider-Man movie that's 100% true to the comics. Basically, they just kind of want to watch Spider-Man 2 again. That seems to be the only movie they like. And that's when the clouds opened up and Gavin descended from the heavens saying, yeah, I'm gonna need about $20,000. Quickly after that, an Indiegogo campaign began, with Gavin promising a tried and true Spider-Man film. One that's supposed to be just like Spider-Man 2. However, this campaign widely exceeded expectations, passing $100,000 in donations. Soon, Gavin could reveal his dream project to the world, Spider-Man Lotus. Not gonna lie, it's actually a pretty cool name. However, the production of the film was rife with turmoil. In 2022, it was revealed that Warden Wayne, one of the writers of the film, as well as the actor playing Spider-Man, really liked to say the N-word.
The Ku Klux Klan!
Warden went ahead and put out an apology. He claims that he was racist because he was homeschooled. Yeah, okay, that checks out. And then the controversy was put to bed and the film could finally resume production. Never mind, Gavin also said some pretty fucked up shit, ranging from ableism to some very creative racism. And this was exposed by an anonymous Twitter user who was later revealed to be someone who knew Gavin 5 years earlier. Like seriously, this part of the story is kind of crazy. Apparently this random kid got kicked off of the Spider-Man fan film project and was so mad that for 5 years he plotted his revenge. With a slew of real and doctored screenshots, this unknown entity had one goal: to destroy Gavin and his film once and for all. Shortly afterwards, Gavin made his own apology. But the damage was already done. Memes began to spread online. Spider-Man Lotus was being referred to as Spider-Man Racist. Then, the VFX team drops out of the movie due to both the controversy as well as the fact that production was just overall really shitty. Gavin is found insulting the actresses from the film. Disgruntled employees begin to leak scenes and images from the film online, culminating in them eventually leaking the entire script. And to top it all off, the actor for the Green Goblin was revealed to be a pedophile. And if that's not enough, he's also racist. But after years of controversy, Gavin dragged himself through blood and bones to release the film so that the $100,000 would not go to waste. And on August 11th, 2023, Spider-Man Lotus was revealed. So was it all worth it? Is the movie any good?
No!
Now, normally I wouldn't bother reviewing a fan film. For one, I'm not a fan, of fan films. I usually don't like anything fans make. I hate fans. Unless they're fans of me, of course. I don't like fan films, fan fiction, fan-made games, video game mods, nothing. If a fan made it, there is a 99% chance that I will not consume that piece of media. I think years of listening to fans being wrong about everything all of the time has built a natural resentment for fan-created work. If you're out there and you make fan content, I think that's awesome. You should keep doing it, but I'm probably not going to watch it. It's just not my jam. And as such, for the last few years, I kind of ignored Spider-Man Lotus. I thought it sounded really stupid. However, I could not stop thinking about how much hubris and ego must be required to make this ambitious of a project. A film meant to rival the storytelling of a major Hollywood franchise. Because this isn't just a fan film. There are a number of screenshots and now deleted tweets where the creator of the film professed that he wants to make a film to rival all other fan films, and to finally give Spider-Man the movie he deserves. A movie that will give us the true on-screen version of Peter Parker, unlike the MCU films, of course. And it comes across as very misguided, but I do have to remember that Gavin is a very young filmmaker. I don't really blame him for letting the attention get to his head. After all, for the last few years, he's been surrounded by people who, without question, said that his idea was amazing. I'm honestly more annoyed with the fans and the Indiegogo backers who funded this movie out of pure spite for the MCU. Spider-Man fans gave $100,000 to a guy who wasn't even old enough to drink at the time in order to make the Spider-Man movie they thought they wanted. And you see, despite what some people say about me, I never like to act like I know better than people who do this stuff for a living. And most importantly, when I'm watching something truly heinous, I try to avoid saying that I could do better, because I am not a filmmaker and I am not a writer. If this movie was just a little passion project by a guy with good intentions, I would not be making this video. I would never want to roast something like that, even if it was bad. But it just so happens that this is a vanity project born from spite, and that's just too spicy to pass up. And if you're gonna make an entire feature-length film to spite the MCU and to spite superhero movie YouTubers for some reason, I think that's a little weird. And as far as I'm concerned, if you claim to have made the fan film to end all fan films, you better be able to back it up. So honestly, I don't really care about the fact that he said the N-word when he was a teenager. My ancestors don't really care if he's getting ratioed on Twitter for saying the gamer word before he had chin hair. What I do care about is the fact that he clearly bit off more than he could chew. And the result is a movie that nobody with this little experience should have tried to make. So now I'm going to try to give the most fair review that I can offer for Spider-Man Lotus. Now, there are a lot of things that I can't really fairly criticize with this film that I normally would bring up. Normally, I would complain when the acting is bad, but this is a fan film, you know? I'm not talking about Oscar award winners here. And honestly, most of the performances are really not that bad. I can say that overall, these kids are better than the cast of Riverdale, and I know that's not a very high bar, but it's at least something. Another thing that's better than I expected are the effects. For what it's worth, considering the fact that the VFX team bailed so early, I'm surprised the movie looks this good at all. I think overall, the effects are just fine. I have nothing to complain about, except for the fact that they do have some very creative character models.
That's a penis!
But then also, the lighting is really, really bad. And honestly, I can't even call it lighting, because it looks like the scene was shot normally, but then some doofus went in and slid the brightness down in post to make the movie darker and edgier. But if you've ever edited any kind of footage before, you can see that they just dimmed it digitally. And honestly, this is one of the worst parts of this movie. So much of your on-set lighting is being obscured by someone lowering the brightness. There's no reason to dim the scenes that are set in broad daylight. Another weird issue in this movie is that there's too many establishing shots, plus they're too long and they never actually establish where we are in the movie. Yep, that's New York. Yeah, that's still New York. That's okay. I'll sit here. I'm sitting here the whole time. I did not modify this footage. It's really this long. The dialogue of the movie is also very lifeless, and every other character talks like they're being written by a 16-year-old. And honestly, judging by the timeline of this movie, They probably were. Like, for instance, listen to this newscaster.
Good morning, New York City. We are coming on the air with some rather unfortunate news.
He's talking like he's recording a fucking hostage video. This isn't even what news anchors are supposed to sound like. Everybody and their mom knows what it sounds like when someone's on the fucking news. And yes, I understand that this is very nitpicky, but when all of these small things get overlooked, it adds this layer of inexperience all over the production. And remember, the director did claim that this would be the greatest fan film ever made.
Sources say they saw Spider-Man fleeing the vicinity, leaving Osborn dead on the scene with the blade wounds and several scars.
Yes, Spider-Man gave the corpse scars. Corpses can't form scars. To get more into this, let's move on to the opening scene of the movie. First, we get some pretty okay-looking swinging from Peter as he makes it to a battle with Shocker and his goons. And right from this first scene, we can see how this movie just doesn't have this sauce. You know what I mean? This is the only scene in the whole movie where we get to see Spider-Man in his prime. And,
What are you wearing?
It's my shocker suit!
Your shocker suit. That's what you're calling.
Yeah!
Wow. Did you come up with that yourself?
Don't make jokes! You're bad at it!
yeah, I'm sorry, but the charisma just isn't there. You might need some more homeschooling, buddy. The lack of charisma as well as the weak writing immediately shows us that this probably isn't going to be a movie where we like Spider-Man. But to give us just a hint of how shitty of a person he is, Spider-Man uses human shields in a battle to protect himself from Shocker's laser beams. I think we should all agree, I don't think Spider-Man would do that. But hey, the suit looks homemade. That's all these people care about. That's the comic book accuracy we all crave. I'm also not given a reason to care about any of these characters yet. You'll find that all of the character writing is just scenes of everybody being really pissed off. Like, everybody's in a bad mood all of the time. And it makes sense in the later scenes after Gwen is dead, but in this scene, there's no excuse. This is supposed to be the best part of Peter's life. This is them when they have nothing to worry about. Peter Parker hardly even smiles in this scene. Later on in the movie, they look back on these days as the last time they were all happy together. Do these people look happy to you? Normally, again, I wouldn't complain about a fan film having weak character writing. But this movie is almost 2 hours long. If in that time you can't make me care about a single character, something is very, very wrong. So anyway, after that, we get an opening sequence showing us cool art of what happened to Gwen. Have you guys ever heard of Spider-Man 2 before? It's kind of underrated. I don't know if a lot of people have seen it. Now, normally I wouldn't mind this kind of presentation of information, but I should let you know that this information is in fact going to be re-explained to us over and over and over again in the coming hours. So after that, we see Peter Parker at Gwen's grave when MJ comes up to talk to him. But remember, this is not nice Spider-Man. This is mean Spider-Man.
You're worried about me?
Yes.
I'm trying to recall when I've ever seen you worry about anything.
Okay.
None of you get it. I don't want to talk to anyone.
Peter, don't get mad at me for trying to help.
You're not trying to help.
Yes,
I know
I
better
am.
than most. You never cared about that. Never.
Harry is gone. Nobody wants to go out with me anymore.
What, so you came to bug me about it?
No.
You're a joke. I knew you couldn't handle it.
Couldn't handle what?
Not being the center of attention just for a second. The life of the party loses her spotlight and doesn't know what to do with herself.
That's not true.
It is true. You're so unaware of yourself, it's not even funny. You don't care about people like me and Gwen. She didn't live life like it was a constant game. Maybe if you took a second to think, you could have learned a thing or two from her.
And yeah, even Peter Parker at his lowest shouldn't be this much of a spiteful, angry asshole. Like, this is kind of how symbiote Peter is supposed to act. But this is just a few weeks after Gwen died, so I will give it the benefit of the doubt for now. Because it's not like he's gonna be this way for the whole movie. He acts like this in the whole movie. So anyway, MJ gives Peter Parker a letter for Spider-Man. Apparently there's a little sick boy who's been diagnosed as terminally ill. And then of course, we have to go to a new scene. And that means it's time for a few establishing shots. Yeah, I'm showing the whole thing. I'm allowed to do that now. I don't have to cut it down to 10 seconds. I can show the whole thing. I could stream the whole movie if I felt like it. I'm not doing that. Cut! So Peter goes to his apartment and he sees Harry passed out. And then, of course, they have to have an argument because this is dark and gritty Spider-Man. We can't have scenes that are fun.
You weren't the only person who lost something that day, but you can't admit that because you're too selfish to think about anyone else. Nothing is ever a problem until it affects you.
And after that scene, we get the bane of every amateur college filmmaker, a black and white dream sequence. But, however, to be nice for a second, I think this scene isn't really that bad. I like that the black and white actually has a purpose in this scene and that the Spider-Man suit is the only thing in color. It's kind of a creative idea. I think that's kind of cool. However, I think this movie would be greatly improved if this was the scene that we saw right after the opening credits. Like, skip that scene with MJ. That was fucking stupid. And also, skip this scene with Harry. It is also horrible. Because this scene is more visually interesting and it gives us all of the information we need anyway. Because I should point out that we are a whole quarter through the movie at this point, and the only thing we know is that Gwen died, and everybody's really upset about it. Yeah, let me tell you, this is real groundbreaking Spider-Man content right here. If you're gonna adapt the death of Gwen Stacy, you gotta do something a little more creative. This has literally been the whole movie so far, and I'm gonna spoil something for you guys. This is the only thing we're gonna get for the rest of the film. And then we get this very long and kind of strange scene of Peter watching iPhone footage of him and his friends. Again, if this was in the movie for like just a minute, it would be a lot better. But it keeps going.
Wine and candy headache.
And then after that, we have another scene of, you guessed it, people being sad that Gwen Stacy is dead. I really don't have anything to say about this movie. Why am I reviewing it? This is a film that thinks it is the most profound, deep, emotional experience that we could ever see for Spider-Man on screen. When in actuality, it's the most shallow story you can tell. And a lot of young amateur creators are very bad at cutting things out of their projects. I get it. You really want to show that one scene, but you don't need to. So far, I am 40 minutes into the movie, and I've only seen one scene that I think was worth filming. Just because you can make a movie 2 hours long doesn't mean that you should. But then we get a fight scene with the Green Goblin, who looks kind of hilarious.
You are horrifying to look at.
Like, overall, I think the suit isn't that bad when it isn't moving. But when they make him talk, it looks truly hilarious.
Hababa. Hababa-da-ga-da.
And the thing is, again, I think this wouldn't be so bad if they showed us less of it. This is not a costume that should get an extended on-screen monologue. It should be shown to us like it was in the earlier scene. Stylize it, show it to us in a vague way, give us the impression of the Green Goblin, and we will get the idea. And also, he might be more imposing if we see less of him. Anyway, gotta go to another scene. And you know what that means.
Okay. This is just gonna be one. It's gotta just be one. Cut!
After that, we get another flashback. This one is particularly awful. Again, I don't really want to make fun of anybody's performances in this movie because they're kids. They're not professionals. For instance, while the girl playing Mary Jane isn't doing a very good job in this scene, she actually does really well in other scenes in the movie. I hope this shit-ass movie doesn't ruin her reputation because she really isn't that bad. And maybe with a better director, she could really show her stuff. But then apparently the boys making this movie said that the female talent were so bad that they had to salvage their performances. Yeah, man, you did a really great job. Oh yeah, let me tell you, these drawn out scenes with terrible lighting and shadows covering their faces the whole time, it's really good. You did a good job. Like, can I see the fucking characters? Why did you pick the most cluttered, shady-ass street in New York City? Anyway, after that, we get this weird, preachy scene where Flash Thompson talks about how much he loves Peter Parker.
You know, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I was always a little bit jealous of him. He was always somehow getting looks from Gwen, Liz, or you. I used to hate him. I think he hated me too. Back in high school. But even after everything I did to him, you know, all the pranks, the humiliation, whatever, he was still a friend to me when I needed him to be.
Why is this in the movie?
My dad wasn't around much, and when he was around.
Why is this in the movie? So I think at this point, we're pretty far into the movie, and I can officially say that this movie's shit. I don't understand why your dream Spider-Man movie is just an adaptation of the death of Gwen Stacy. If I got $100,000 to make a Spider-Man movie, I would get fucking weird with it. I'd show things that haven't been shown before. Spider-Man is so rich with unique story opportunities, and your dream movie is just one where he's sad that Gwen Stacy died? Again, the idea was to make a movie that is comic book accurate, that's true to the character of Spider-Man. But I think the hunger for comic book accuracy has blinded Gavin. Because yeah, the suit is comic accurate. It looks great. The events in the story are comic book accurate. But when you peel off all of this surface level shit, you are left with no flavor. Once the second half of the movie starts, we get our second plot line. And for a second, I thought maybe Gavin made some original concepts, but I was wrong. Instead, we are now adapting another Spider-Man story. The Kid Who Collects Spider-Man, another Spider-Man classic. He even said in the Indiegogo campaign that this movie was just going to be an adaptation of the two most popular Spider-Man stories. And people gave him $100,000.
What is wrong with you people?
Yeah, enjoy having your name in the credits for the N-word Spider-Man movie. Now, to give credit where it's due once more, I actually do like how this scene starts. Peter is clearly very shaken by the events in his life, but he wants to do this one nice thing for this kid. And I do like how awkward and uncomfortable he is just standing there in his costume. Like, the energy of this scene is actually very grounded and realistic.
I'm gonna get some coffee. Can I get you anything?
No, I'm okay.
Really, this is the only time while watching the movie where I can see a reason for the movie existing. I also like this moment where the sick kid asks Peter what happened in the fight with Green Goblin. This is the only scene that gets to the point in an efficient and effective manner. Wait, no. What's happening? Stop. Please, I was almost starting to like the movie. Stop showing me people being sad.
It's fine. Fuck! It's fine. Fuck! Fuck! It's fine. Fuck! It's fine. Fuck!
Oh, and when we finally do get back to the interesting scenes, Spider-Man begins to trauma dump to a dying child.
She's gone. Because of me. I can't do this. Look, I'm not the hero that you think I am. And this, all of this, it's not me.
All right, never mind. You ruined it.
But you're a hero. You saved all those people.
And how many others suffered because of it?
Oh my God, shut the fuck up. So yeah, Spider-Man literally says that he can't do this anymore, and he leaves the dying, terminally ill child after throwing a fit. I cannot even get into how wrong this is. We are beyond this movie just being boring. Now, it's starting to offend me. See, in the original comic, Peter does have a moment where he says to this little kid that maybe he shouldn't be looking up to him. But it's just a brief moment meant to show us Peter's ever-present self-doubt. Because this little Spider-Man short story is meant to show us just a tiny, bite-sized nugget of everything that makes Spider-Man Spider-Man. The purpose of this comic is to show us his backstory, teach us about what he can do, and finally, it's supposed to show us that even though he's really busy and he has horrible work-life balance, he will still make time for someone who needs him. But in this version of the story, Peter feels more bad for himself than he does for the dying child. And also, the whole point of the story is ruined by showing us that the kid has cancer before Peter even meets him. When you're reading the original story, we don't know why Peter would ever spend all this time hanging out with some random kid, telling him all of his secrets and showing him his secret identity. And then we get to the final panel, and it all makes sense. Because that's how you tell a story. You have to lay these elements out in a way that engages your audience. If you wanted to be comic accurate so bad, you should have paid attention to why you even like this story. Anyway, it's time for more shitty CW drama.
I have you. And Peter. And we had Gwen.
So here's what's wrong with this shitty subplot. This subplot has been revolving around how MJ and Harry are adjusting to the deaths of Gwen and Harry's dad. But the thing is, you can't just show us this new version of these characters and expect us to automatically be invested in them. I have no reason to care about this version of Harry and MJ. I think that Gavin thought we'd see Mary Jane and think in our heads, oh, I like Mary Jane, so I'm automatically invested in the struggles of this Mary Jane. No, that's not how it fucking works. You haven't given me a reason to care. You didn't show me what kind of person she is. I don't know anything about her other than the fact that she's sad about Gwen fucking Stacy. Gwen Stacy, wah wah, I'm fucking sick of it! I'm not kidding when I say this is the hardest review I've ever had to make. I don't have anything to talk about. I've had to just sit here the whole time bringing up the same problems because there's nothing in this movie. How do I review a movie that doesn't have anything in it? But thankfully, while I have my issues with the way this story was told, I do think the last moment with the sick child is a good way to end the movie. Peter finally drops his weird little hissy fit and he accepts the fact that he is a superhero, that he helps people, and that there's a reason for him to be doing what he's doing. The movie seems to be wrapping up now, and Peter seems to finally accept his role as Spider-Man. And he even seems to get closure on Gwen's death. For what it's worth, I can say that Peter Parker had a complete character arc. No. What's left to say?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
MJ and Harry have gotten closure. Peter Parker got closure. The story is over. What else do you have to talk about? Over and over in this video, I've really tried to give this movie the benefit of the doubt, but I have never seen such a flagrant display of hubris from a fan-made work in my life. 80% of this movie has characters reiterating the same information that we are taught in the first scene. The characters do not grow in an interesting or nuanced way. It's a movie about people being sad that their friend died, and they're just yelling at each other for nearly 2 hours. It seems like Gavin really wanted to write a mature story about how someone's death could affect a group of people. And while that may seem like an incredibly cliche concept, there are ways to do that effectively. So let's look at a story that talks about death and grieving in a more nuanced and concise manner. Major spoilers for Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 5. I know the show is older than most of my audience, but I figured I'd warn you guys anyway. Skip to this time code to get back to Spider-Man. Buffy Season 5, Episode 16. The Body. In this episode, Buffy's mom dies.
Mom? Mommy?
Now, this is a show where death is rather frequent. This is not the first reoccurring character to be killed off. But what makes it different this time is that this character doesn't die from a vampire, or an evil puppet, or whatever the fuck this is. This character just dies from natural causes, suddenly and without warning. Like the episode right before this has Buffy fighting a robot girlfriend that was built by a guy who wanted a robot girlfriend. The show can be really fucking stupid. But that's what makes this sudden reveal so shocking, because the point is that sometimes people just die. And the whole episode revolves around the ways that the sudden appearance of the body just grinds every other event to a halt. While most episodes of Buffy can be very silly and often sloppy, this is by far the best episode of the series and possibly one of the best episodes of a TV show that I've ever seen. The episode begins with a flashback to a scene of all of the characters enjoying a moment together at dinner. By this point, we've already seen what happened to Buffy's mom, so we know the point of this scene. And none of the characters need to stand up and say something like, I'm so glad we could share this moment together. No, we don't need anybody to tell us how to feel with words. This is just a point in time that Buffy's remembering. It's almost mundane, a moment that would normally hold no significance.
Look, all we have to do is just cut off a little bit of the burn.
We're brought back to reality. The following scene begins with a oneer, a long take where we follow Buffy as she agonizingly tries to come to grips with what is happening. She can't cast a spell to fix this. There's no monsters around for her to punch. She has to do something she almost never does. She has to call 911. In her panic, she tries to do CPR, and she breaks her mother's ribs with her super strength. This is the 94th episode of the series, and Buffy has very rarely lost control of her strength. The paramedics refer to the state of the body, and Buffy corrects them.
She's cold. The body is cold? No, my mom.
Because it's not just a body. That's her mom. But then the paramedics arrive, and she's okay. Everything's just fine. Time to get back to fighting fishmen.
That's what it is, a beautiful miracle.
Good as new.
Oh, Buffy, thank God you found me in time.
Of course, it was just a brief delusion. The paramedics don't even seem to care. This is just routine for them. They deliver all of the information to her so matter-of-factly. This isn't a dream sequence. She's just dead. And then, of course, they tell her what to do with the body.
In the meanwhile, I think you should sit, have a glass of water, and try not to disturb the body.
During all of this, Buffy doesn't break down into hysterics. She doesn't look to the sky and scream, "No, give back my mother, not my mother." Instead, she does things that are irrational. She wanders out the front door, comes back inside, and then kind of forgets that the body's still there. She stares off blankly for extended periods of time. She vomits on the floor, and then stands motionless by the back door for a moment before cleaning it up. It's like she remembers, oh yeah, I should probably clean that. That's what you do when you throw up on the floor. This irrational mundanity is shot in such a dreamlike way, with any cuts being sporadic or infrequent. This first act ends when Giles finally shows up to help, and then this happens.
They're coming for her. No,
Joyce!
we're not supposed to move the body.
This is the moment. This is no longer her mother. That's just the body. And the rest of the episode follows everybody's own irrational reactions to the event. Some characters act like how you'd expect. Of course, the worst character in the whole show has some dumbass shit to say, but some characters don't know how to take it. Willow changes her clothes over and over again for no reason. It's like she's trying to think of anything other than the traumatic event in front of her. And during all of this, the camera seems to focus on the minor moments. The focus of the episode isn't how sad we are that a character died, it's about the empty, hollow feeling you have when something like this happens. And again, this is never outright stated to us. It's shown with minimal dialogue. It's shown in the editing, in the set design. The theme of the episode is negative space, the space left around the characters during this event. Outside of the opening theme song, there is no music in this episode. There are hardly any sound effects. This eerie emptiness is the theme of the episode. There is no message to take home with you after this episode. The characters have no lesson to learn. And yet this single episode of a schlocky Monster of the Week action show from the 90s is one of the most emotionally resonant pieces of fiction I've ever watched. An episode so hauntingly good that I feel deeply uncomfortable when I rewatch it. It makes me feel a little too human, if that makes sense. And on the surface, you could say, it's an episode about people being really sad that somebody died. And sure, I guess it is. But it's really about more than that. Hey, remember when this video was about racist Spider-Man? Yeah, fuck that. I'm just gonna watch Buffy now.
Buffy want beer.
No, you can't have beer.
Want beer.
This show is dumb as hell. Now, I'm not saying that an amateur filmmaker should have written something as good as one of the most popular TV shows of all time. That is not my point. My point is that people making this Spider-Man story clearly wanted to tackle a darker and more realistic story, but they simply do not possess the tools to do so. And if you didn't have an interesting story to tell, why were you this desperate to tell it? I truly just don't understand how this could be someone's dream Spider-Man story. The entire story is just a boring, miserable retelling of two of Spider-Man's most popular stories, except without the heart, context, and emotional weight associated with those original stories. Gwen Stacy's death isn't sad because somebody died. It's sad because we didn't think she could die. People didn't think Spider-Man could reach a moment that was this bleak. At the time, this story was unthinkable, and it was groundbreaking. And as such, it cannot be told again. Any attempts to do so have been shunned and rejected. Any writer can write a story about Spider-Man being sad that somebody died. Spider-Man's always fucking sad about someone dying. It's a weight that he carries with him forever. It's literally the point of the character. And yet for decades, writers are still finding ways to write about how Spider-Man deals with death, how he accepts it, and how he rejects it. And if you want to write Spider-Man, but you can't get this core aspect of his character down, well, you might not be ready to write Spider-Man yet. In my opinion, I think that you probably shouldn't make your dream project as your first ever project. I've heard a lot of game developers say this about people who are starting to make games, but I think it's true of anything. If you have a dream film or book or a game that you want to make, you should probably get your feet wet a little bit. Study the art of filmmaking a little bit more, or writing, or whatever craft it is that you're trying to hone. Learn and fail on other projects before you tackle your dream. Because if you get a chance to make that dream movie first, and you release it, you don't get to make it again. You can't go back and change it, unless you're George Lucas. You're always gonna look back on that movie as the first one that you made. The one that you made before you had all the training and experience that you got later. I just personally think it's best to wait a few years before you try to tackle something as ambitious as this. Now, I'm not going to give a score to Spider-Man Lotus. For a fan film, I find it to be rather unproductive to apply the same grading scale. I don't think it's fair to rank it among the other worst superhero movies ever made. And above all else, if I can say one thing, I'm not going to look at someone else's piece of art and claim that I can do better. Except I probably could do better.